Welcome to another episode. In today's lecture series, we will see about happiness. This topic is actually in answer to your question: is happiness a cookie which the brain bakes itself? That's what the questioner has asked. Is happiness a cookie which the brain bakes itself? That is happiness something the brain creates and enjoys? Yes, it is in a way created by the brain and enjoyed by the brain physically. Let us see the scientific basis for this. It starts with the ventral tegmental area or VTA, which is the region responsible for that first release of dopamine into the brain. So VTA is responsible for the first release of dopamine into the brain. The VTA then activates dopamine neurons in the medial forebrain bundle. So first it starts with the ventral tegmental area or VTA. Then it releases dopamine activates dopamine neurons in the medial forebrain bundle, or called MFB, medial forebrain bundle. The mesolimbic dopamine pathway, which is most important and active part of dopamine reward circuit. So mesolimbic dopamine pathway is the most important and active dopamine reward circuit. This is where the rush of happiness happens. In mesolimbic dopamine pathway, the rush of happiness happens. We will start with the scientific theory at this juncture. Much more details are available in an article for which I am giving a reference. Okay, but is happiness simply release of some chemical? More dopamine does not mean more happiness. It has its own negative side, like dopamine addiction. There is a difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure is caused. Happiness is when there is peace, when there is no misery. So let us see the philosophical or spiritual side of this. First, from To Be Human from J.Krishnamurti. From that book, we will see a few lines. What he says: we seek happiness through things. Normally, we seek happiness through things, through relationship, through thoughts, ideas. So things, relationship and ideas become all important and not happiness. For us, things, relationship and ideas become all important and not happiness. When we seek happiness through something, then the thing becomes a greater value than the happiness itself. When stated in this manner, it sounds simple. We seek happiness through property, family, and the idea becomes all important. Then happiness is sought through the means, and then the means destroys the end, because when the means are taken away, something happens. Life is always in a fluctuation. Then you become sad. So can happiness be found through any means, through anything made by hand or the mind? That's what J.Krishnamurti asks. Things, the relationship, ideas are so transparently impermanent. We are ever made unhappy by them. We seek happiness through things. We do not find it there. In relationship, we search for it and we find that it is impermanent. We take refuge in it again and again to find happiness in ideas and beliefs. But it is not there. It is destroyed. Ideas can be destroyed by another idea. Things by loss, by impermanency. They wear out. So relationship is constant friction and death abides. So ideas and beliefs have no stability, no permanency. We seek happiness in them, yet we do not realize impermanency. So there is sorrow. So we should question whether happiness can be found through the things, through the mind. If you try to find happiness through the things or mind, unhappiness and sorrow is inevitable. There is happiness only when our search for happiness ceases. To find the true meaning of happiness, we must explore the river of self-knowledge. We think that happiness is at the end, self-knowledge is at the end, or at the source. No, it is not. It is like a river which is flowing. Every drop of it counts in the river. Every drop makes the river. It is not just the source or the end, but the flow and every drop of water in the stream makes the river. So everything is important. Same with the life, same with the truth. Everything is important. Every moment is important. To imagine that we will find happiness at the source is mistaken. It is to be found where you are now, on the river of self-knowledge. To follow the river of self-knowledge, the first step, which is most difficult, must be taken for the beginning of the self-knowledge, is the beginning of wisdom. Happiness is not to be found through any means, but self-knowledge. Love is its own, its own eternity, so self-knowledge is happiness. The purpose of existence is to be free from strife and sorrow, to free of that real eternal can be. Free so that there can be happiness. So J.Krishnamurti says, to be happy is to be free of strife, all the confusion, so that the real or eternal can be found. Happiness is when we cease to do any mischief in the world. He who loves ceases to possess, to divide. A happy man who loves and has peace in his heart is free from all systems, political and religious. He is not the cause of misery and exploitation. So when there is happiness, when you cease to possess, when you cease to be belonging to any political or religious systems, then you are not the cause of misery and exploitation. That's what J.Krishnamurti says. So then you become happy and you make others happy. So next we will see a few lines from The Art of Dying by Osho. He asks, what is happiness? Absence of unhappiness is happiness. What is health? Absence of disease is health. So when we are not unhappy, there is happiness. When you are not unhappy, there is happiness. So if a person is not unhappy, then all his sources of alive, a dance arises in his being, a joy arises, laughter bursts forth, he explodes, he becomes Hazid, a Sufi, he becomes the presence of divine ecstasy. By seeing him you will see God, a glimpse, a ray of light. By visiting them you will be visiting a shrine, a sacred place, a tirtha. Just by being in his presence you will be suffused with a new light, a new being, a new wave will arise around you, and you can ride on that tidal wave and go to the other shore. Whenever there is a really dropping of unhappiness, happiness is left. Nothing else is possible. One is simply happy without any reason, without any why. So what Osho says is, when you cease to be unhappy, if you find what makes you unhappy and leave that, then happiness automatically comes. You are bursting forth with joy, and everyone will be happy who are in that person's presence, in your presence. So this is how happiness is there. One is the release of the chemicals, the scientific side of it. But happiness is not merely that, it is more than that. Happiness is when you cease to be in confusion, in strife, when you cease to be unhappy, then you are happy. So with this, we will end this episode. Stay with me for another episode. Subscribe to my channel and share this video. Thank you.